Ooh,
Right.
Good morning.
So, good morning. I know we're hiding amongst all the shrubs.
I'm Freya, hiding behind these nettles.
I'm Alex.
And we are at the entrance to Hollybush Conservation Centre on the Leeds Liverpool Canal. And we are, let's get out of the undergrowth. Yeah. We are going to take you out of the entrance that you'd use if you were leaving the grounds of Hollybush, and for a little walk along Leeds Liverpool Canal. Forgive us for the graffiti that's on the sign. So yeah, we are, you can see, we're going to clear this later this afternoon. That's the hedgerow that we planted in the hedge planting live stream. And we're just going to take a quick look at some of the things that you might spot on the Leeds Liverpool Canal and why you might want to have a walk along it, because I think especially on a day like today,
yeah, it's beautiful. Having
this on our doorstep is a pretty magical option. So we're just going to take a quick look down this way, where we've got the old Kirkstall Brewery, which is now a university halls of residence that sort of takes there, and this way that leads you to Leeds. So Leeds city centre is a couple of miles this way, and this canal goes into Leeds dock, and then on the left hand side we've got Hollybush, and then we are going to walk towards Liverpool.
Yeah.
So we're
not all the way.
Not all the way. It's 127 miles is the whole length of the Leeds Liverpool Canal, and Hollybush is about 2 miles in. So if we went all the way to Liverpool, it would be about 125 miles from this point. We'll probably walk past some markers as we go that we can take a look at. But we're going to have a look at some of the wildlife, listen to some of the birds, and just introduce you to some of the things you can see. And I think hopefully they've come back now because we scared them off.
Well, we've got some damselflies around here. They've been here all morning while we've been sat here looking. Let's see if we have a look. And then,
because canals were built as something for industry, they were a really important part globally, and in the UK. In the UK, they came up as part of the Industrial Revolution, and they were for transporting goods, and they were a vital part of transporting loads and loads of resources and shipments up until it was the invention of the lorry, basically, the motorway infrastructure came in.
Yeah,
canals were a large part of how we transported everything.
Even after the railway was put in, the canal was still predominantly used for industry.
Here, we're looking for shoals of fish is what we're after.
There are some in the water. I'm not sure how clear that is coming across. I don't want to go for a swim. It is quite warm. But
I want the live stream to go well, so I definitely am not secretly slightly hoping that you go splosh. So it was 1770 is when the Leeds Liverpool Canal started construction, and then 1777 it was opened from Leeds as far as Gargrave, and then 1816 was when the whole stretch from Leeds to Liverpool was completed. And then for well over 100 years it was one of the main ways that goods were transported between Leeds and Liverpool, and that meant getting them to the port in Liverpool as well. So then part of them being able to put on ships and for global transport. But as well as being industrial and really, really functionally useful, they're a hugely important thing for biodiversity. So they're these big stretches of waterways, and as you can see, if you look at the far bank, quite often they've got a lot of the way. It has a lot of trees, a lot of woodland, and a lot of where they've been cut out, that then leaves banks. That means that wildlife is able to grow. You get rock formations that allow for some species that don't have many other habitats that they can grow on to do quite well there.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking particularly lively at this time of year.
Yeah, you can see the fish over there. We need to find some that are slightly closer, don't we?
Hopefully. I mean,
is it picking them up?
In the centre of the screen, if you see any movement, there is a tiny
some a little
shoal.
bit closer there. I'm not certain what fish these are, because they're basically just baby fish.
Yeah, they're absolutely tiny. Oh, there's a damselfly just
One's landed on your hat.
There's a damselfly on my hat. Is it still there?
No, it's coming. It's just flying over there. But it just.
Yeah, I mean, just from our pond live streams, you can, if you've watched any of them, you can see how a tiny little pond has the amount of biodiversity in it. Imagine a stretch of water that's 127 miles long with a vastly different amount of plants and things growing on the borders. It supports such a wide variety of animals, well, and plants as well. But yeah, I mean, just looking here, you can see there are some freshwater snails just taking a ride on the currents here. They've kind of attached themselves to the.
What's that thing that's swimming around?
I think that is a. Is it a freshwater shrimp?
I think it is, yeah.
Freshwater shrimp.
Hello.
The little grey thing that's darting around in the screen. It's in the centre of the screen now. Freshwater shrimp.
And if you do have a net and a tray, you do see families and things that come and do sort of a pond dip. So it is, as long as you put everything back and you're careful not to use the nets in sort of other water courses because you don't want to spread waterborne diseases, but you can come and do a little mini pond dip yourself if you're careful. Don't fall in. Again, don't fall in.
Yeah.
Shall we keep walking?
Yeah.
Let's get a little bit further away from Hollybush. So you can see we've got the grass along here that's largely uncut, which traditionally the towpath would have been used for towing. This would have been how the barges and things were pulled, but since most of the barges are now motorised and not many of them are, they're mostly for leisure or living now. So a lot of the birds and things that probably would have been kept much lower are now able to grow up. So they are now much better, sort of almost long, very thin meadow habitat. You can see here, it's a part of the National Cycle Network, so it's Route 66. Get your kicks on the Leeds Liverpool Canal, I believe, as the song goes. Something just fell in. So it is a cycleway, so it does take you all the way to Liverpool if you keep going this way, but it also takes you sort of past Skipton.
Oh, there's a bike.
It takes you, it's quite a nice cycle route, so I did it with my sister once to go visit my gran who was living on the Wirral. And you can do it in a couple of days. I think some people do it in a day, and that is, you get up at 5 and you're cycling till 10 at night, and it sounds awful. So we went, let's do it over 2 days.
Yeah.
So it is a lovely cycle route. I think Hollybush did a sponsored one a few years ago.
They did, yeah.
They did a sponsored cycle to Liverpool.
I think Tom from Woodwork, he took part.
Yeah,
in it. Yeah.
A few people did.
I mean, on the opposite side of the canal, Leeds to Liverpool has got these massive expanses of just green land. You can see here, so it's a vital bit of sort of habitat. It's got the water
you can
here.
See the Abbey through this, but if you come through this gap, you've got quite a good shot of just the top of the Abbey.
Yeah.
Poking up just there, just to give you an idea of where we are.
Right in the centre of the screen. And there's an interesting fact about the Abbey Stone, isn't there?
Oh, we'll get to that when we get closer to the place.
Oh, okay, yeah. Something to look forward to.
Oh, it's a little fish again. I don't know if you can. So yeah, it's a cycle ride you can do, but there's loads and loads of little walks. So you can come down to where Hollybush is, and you can join it here to go for a walk from there, or you can get a train into Kirksville Forge, which is further up than where we'll get to, but it's just beyond where we're likely to get to in this video. And you can get the train to there from the city centre, and then you can get onto the canal really easily from there and have a walk. And there's the surrounding woods as well. But it's just a really lovely way to just get the opportunity to walk along it and just see the wildlife. I'm really hoping that if we're quiet and if we keep a lookout, we'll be able to see ducklings, I'm hoping for, but also kingfishers. We see them sometimes. Oh. There were some.
I've seen
damselflies.
kingfishers towards the other side of Leeds.
I mean, even looking here. So if you look just in the sunlight there, there's this. I don't know how well you'll be able to see it.
Sort of
There's this
fuzz.
swarm of insects, which quite often get overlooked as their importance. But by having a lot of mosquitoes and midges and things, they reproduce in water, so their larvae live in water, and the damselflies, obviously, which are the ones that are those little. They look like little dragonflies. And dragonflies as well, actually. Their larvae, their nymphs, can live in the water. And that means you get these populations of these little midge-type insects that are flying around over the surface of the water.
Yeah, you can kind of see them. It's sort of little speckles flying around, but there's, you know, thousands and thousands of them. But, yeah, they're, again, maybe not the nicest thing if you wanted to sit down and have a picnic next to the canal, but they're a massive part of the food chain, supporting. Sometimes you can see the fish. Every so often you'll see a fish coming up to the surface and just grabbing one of the little flies.
So that's part of why there's so many birds around and things, as well as there being the trees and places that they can nest. Look, that's a cool damselfly.
Bright green one.
And part of it, so yeah, as well as habitat for wildlife, there is the habitat for people. A lot of leisure, a lot of holiday, people can hire boats, but actually a lot of people just permanently live in the boat. So there's the moorings just up beyond towards Horsforth this way, and then more back towards town. There's lots of moorings where there's permanent residents and it's their home. So the canals are still a home to a lot of people, and they are still used for some industry, like I think some shipments do still happen, but a much lower level. Lorries are by far the most economical way.
Yeah, I think there is. If you are an avid canal walker, you'll see sometimes docked up at the Woodlesford or Skelton area. There's an old coal boat that's been turned into a sort of personal barge, but it's huge. Yeah. Right, I'm gonna
it's like a townhouse but on water.
flip the camera
amazing.
around to over there so you can see the Abbey. Head up this way.
And a lot of this that we're walking past now would have been. This is the farmland that would have been part of Hollybush Farm. So Hollybush Conservation Centre was Hollybush Farm, and that was. All this farmland would have been the rhubarb farm, I guess. Like, if it was the farmland of Hollybush Farm.
Yeah, so Hollybush is literally just behind these trees here. So this stretch of green here.
And you can just see the railway line. And so there's the old Leeds Rhino goalposts just over there. So that's the field that was part of Hollybush Farm. And you can still see some of the old farm buildings in it, but those goalposts, because it's on a floodplain, that rugby pitch has been abandoned, basically. It kept getting a bit too waterlogged. And then the railway line runs in between it. I don't know if you can just about see the wires poking up along there. But that kind of cuts through this farmland that makes it not that viable to farm.
Yeah, it's if you can't see the lines, it's that sort of green verge you can see there.
Yeah. But suddenly, from having been, when you're in Kirkstall, you feel very much like you're in the city. And if you sort of come in from Hollybush from the roadside, you feel like you've just come from a main road and you're entering. You're in a nice little conservation garden, but it's in an urban setting. But then as soon as you walk out that back gate, we're suddenly in fields and looking at fish and looking at.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of
damselflies and kingfishers.
It's like you've just transported to the middle of the Dales somewhere. Like it's so green and vibrant. The magical
portal that is Hollybush Conservation Centre. Portal to this wonderful green corridor that takes you right across the country. It takes you to the coast, to the west coast, basically. I mean, you can see over there we've got the swathes of buttercups and things, and unfortunately quite a lot of litter floating about in there. But we do regular litter picks along here.
Yeah. I mean, if you're watching and you're interested, keep an eye on our social media, because we do litter picks here regularly.
So this is one of the locks that is part of, this is how they control the water. So if you were, this is how you go up and down hills. So, I mean, you were talking about that, weren't you, Alex, about how the Leeds Liverpool Canal is particularly noteworthy because it does most of its up and down by locks. So there's like the 5 locks where it's lots and lots of steps. And you can see that the water here is low. And if you go over there, it's high. And to get your boat, get your barge from there to there, I'm always terrified I'm going to lose my glasses when I'm looking in these. God, can you imagine the shame? So what you do is they close this lock gate and open that one, and this fills up with water, and then the barge can come into this bit, and then when it's in there, they open the hatch there, and this slowly drains, lowers the barge, and then they open this one, and it can leave that way.
Like a water lift.
Yeah, it's very cool. And then vice versa, if you're going this way, the water's low there, you come in when the water's low, you close this one, you open this one, and the water lifts you up, and then you go on your way. But part of that is these amazing lock gates, which firstly are just a feat of engineering. Like, they're amazing things. But they've got all of this amazing habitat. So if you look, they've got all of these ferns and plant life that are growing on the water, on the edge. Oh, lots of little fish. There's lots of little fish everywhere. And you can see there's sort of those tongue ferns over there. It makes a sort of amazing wet cliff habitat. It's kind of like a waterfall for the sort of wildlife it supports.
Yeah.
But it's in this sort of industrial. We like our urban ecology, don't we, Alex? The things that you don't necessarily expect to be that good.
Yeah.
And the mosses and the lichens and the ferns.
I can see there's a lot of moss on these the arms supporting the lock. I mean, it's just, yeah, you look at it and you think, oh, it's just a man-made heap of iron and wood, but nature really has sort of made it part of its habitat, and it's, you know.
If you look over there, sort of where the algae is sort of dripping down on the sort of middle beam of that lock gate, it's sort of there's algae that's formed as little stalactite-like things.
Yeah.
And of course the obligatory spider's web.
Yeah. And that's something as a kid I always just remember going across the locks and just getting attacked by hundreds of spider webs, walking through and eating a bunch of spider webs.
I think people quite often think, oh, the canal's mucky. It's just sort of industrial sludge. But when we're looking, it's stuff like there's snails everywhere, there's plant life everywhere, there's little fish everywhere, there's all these flies that come from larvae, the damselflies that come from nymphs that are in the water. It's just teeming with life. I'm enjoying that someone's painted these little bollard things in bright colours.
I think nowadays, because it's not as heavily used for industry, there's a lot less spills and stuff. It's now a lot cleaner than it was. Yeah. I mean, I still wouldn't recommend swimming in the canal, or, you know, going in it, but yeah, it's definitely a lot cleaner.
And along with the grass verges being able to grow up, it's recovering well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think in part as well, there's been lots of conservation efforts with reed beds and stuff.
Yeah, and the Canal and Rivers Trust has done a huge amount of work around, regenerating and preserving the habitats and the.
This corner here is one of my favourite little bits of this canal.
It's lovely. If you really cycle quiet. Cycle out to Saltaire or something, which is quite a nice route if you to go out to sort of Salt Mills or something. And this bit, you just suddenly feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. It's wonderful.
See, on the other side, there's a bed of reeds. Again, great habitat, absolutely brilliant habitat. We're talking about the little fish we saw earlier. There'll be loads of them in there.
I think it might almost be too warm for the ducklings. I think. But normally there's loads and loads of water birds around here, isn't there?
I can hear them every so often.
Oh, look at that field over there.
I think there's a cormorant over there.
Hello, little moorhen. Oh, a moorhen.
I don't think the camera's going to be able to pick it up.
Yeah, we could just make up birds, couldn't we, Alex?
It's a black bird in the water as far as the camera can see. But yeah, I think it is a moorhen.
Yeah. I'm just some self-doubt. The ones with the white beaks.
No, it's gone out. It's hunting for things to eat in the water.
Right here. Oh, a little damselflies just landed on that.
Yeah. There's quite a few.
Loads of damselflies.
Hanging on for dear life in the wind.
So yeah, quite a lot of people mistake damselflies for dragonflies. They do look very similar and they are related. I thought that was a damselfly for a second.
But yeah, the damselflies, they fold their wings up along their body.
And they're quite a lot littler.
Yeah, dragonflies don't do that. And yeah, they are usually like sort of twice the size. But a lot of the times when you think you're seeing a dragonfly, you're actually probably seeing a damselfly.
But you just about dragonflies around here are fairly common. Let's just follow this little bird.
Oh, here we go. So in the water here, if the camera's picking up, all those little specks are tiny little fish, and looking at them now with my eyes rather than the camera, they're at the stage where their bodies are still translucent.
Whoa, look at the hydra here. I don't know if you'll be able to see these, but you can probably get quite close in, but it's absolutely teeming with hydra.
Yeah. The water looks sort of black and cloudy.
Kneel down to see how close it is.
There's loads of tiny little hydra or cyclops, you can call them, yeah. But they support a lot of the fish that are living here. Sometimes if you're doing a scientific survey of fish, trying to find out their diet, you catch a fish and you open up its stomach and you see that it's just got, it's just full of these tiny little grainy creatures.
Absolutely solid with them. And the obligatory tiny baby fish that have found them and are having a reach good time.
Yeah.
Another little bird that's going onto the undergrowth.
Yeah.
Basically, we're out looking for the baby birds. That's what we want, isn't it? Where are the ducklings? Just look at that yellow over there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean,
that's the Leeds Bradford Road sort of curving up over there.
And we haven't mentioned the deer that we spotted the other day.
Ooh.
So
those damselflies are making baby damselflies.
Oh yeah. So on Monday there was a deer that had gotten into Hollybush, and we'd let it out the side gate.
Yeah, the tiny outdoor explorers were in the garden. The little early years group that we've got were in the garden, and then sort of came. Lisa, the leader, came down going, "There's a deer in the garden." So a deer had found its way into the Hollybush garden, and we had to release it. So we opened up that canal gate that we started at. And where did it go? It went
splosh straight into the canal.
Down into the canal,
yeah.
Swam away. So that's something that, like, for animals like deer, for wildlife, a lot of which can swim, it's a great way of protecting them from predators, because a watercourse means they've got an escape route.
Yeah. I mean, and it got across the canal in less than a second. Like, it was in and out.
Yeah. Also dog walkers and things around here.
It's the sort of thing where if you're working in the Leeds and you've got a spare hour at lunch, you've got a sandwich, rather than sitting out or sitting in your office, just go in for a wander along the canal.
And so sit down here and let's look at these oxygenating plants, because there's loads of bubbles of air coming up. And this is just something we've talked quite a lot in other videos about sort of mindfulness and relaxing, how you can relax in nature and sort of steps that you can take to really engage in it. And it is worth sort of, we're stopping, we're looking at these tiny little specks of the hydra, which is more of them here that's just solid with them. But then if you sit and watch, and you just see these air bubbles that just come up periodically, or sit by one of the locks, and just that sound of the running water is, and yeah, the sound of the locks is just really relaxing, isn't it? And those magpies hopping around. How many can see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What does that? How does the rhyme go? 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, 3 for girl, 4 for boy, 5 for silver. We get silver. Excellent. It's a good start to the day, isn't it? Walking along the canal and getting some silver by seeing some magpies.
When I was a kid, because of cartoons, I always used to think the bubbles were from fish, but obviously fish don't produce gas bubbles. It's the plants. And like Freya was saying, if you sat down and you can see a lot of bubbles coming to the surface of plants.
Well, sometimes it's things decaying in the under the. So if it's stagnant, if water's stagnant, like the bubbles and the decaying matter at the bottom, as it decomposes, it releases the gases that sort of bubble up to the top. Is that damselfly? How beautiful. Right. I don't know.
5 minutes left. If we take another.
As soon as we water, there's just going to be loads of bubbles.
So we can't see them. Yeah. Quite a few water.
Want more ducklings? Some ducklings.
When I've seen ducklings on the canal, it's been at this part here because obviously they've got a lot of downstream trees.
It is very, very warm, so I think a lot of things. Oh, hello. There's a lady mallard duck, but where's your babies, little lady duck? Not that you're not also great. You are a beautiful.
Take it really steady, sort of gently push their back leg.
What they say about sort of dealing with stress. I say like a duck, or is it like a swan? Where just sort of they glide across the water, and you can just see their feet paddling away.
The ducks along the beach are very. They're really. Oh, brilliant.
Like she heard me. Oh, look at them. Can you hear them? Like we should stop talking so you can hear the little cheep. In case anyone. Oh, and there's another couple in there, so there's a male one. I don't know if you come to where I am, you might just be able to see the male and female as well. It's just through there. So just so we're clear, I did say I want ducklings to appear and a fleet of ducklings. I'm not saying I definitely control the ducks, but if you want to believe that, that's your proof. Loads of invertebrates, so loads of creatures that those little ducks can eat. Because they do say, like, you may have heard about how going and feeding bread isn't necessarily that good a thing to do. The RSPB has sort of put out pleas asking people not to go and feed white bread to water birds because it's not that nutritionally good for them, and it can be quite bad for the water as well. It sort of pollutes the water and brings up algal blooms that can be quite damaging to ecosystems. Out there we've got a better shot. So that's the male mallard duck. So that's the sort of hello to you too, good sir. They've got that shiny iridescent bluey greeny Oh, you poser with your little bum wiggle. Look at you. Shiny iridescent head, and then the female duck over here, so that's the same species of duck. The female's just got that dappled, thorny coloured feathers.
I mean, it's the same with a lot of birds. The males tend to have the more
flamboyant.
Yeah, attractive plumage.
Flamboyant. Like, look at her, it's beautiful.
Yeah, but
and then you've got the teeny tiny ducks, which are just, let's just look at them, I think. If we'd found these at the beginning, could have just spent an entire live stream looking at.
I mean, they're still very, very young.
They are.
Fluffy.
They're probably like a week or two old, aren't they, those ones?
You can see they're not too fussed. The mum's keeping an eye on them, making sure that she's keeping an eye on us, making sure that we're not.
She's probably going, where's my bread? But yeah, if you are feeding the birds, have a look on things you can feed them online, because there are, I think they like frozen peas, don't they? That's a good thing to feed them. And I think seeds and oats and stuff, but do try and avoid look at, are they eating those little hydra that we were looking at? They're just sort of going through the water. Chomp, 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 chomp. Slurping them up. Oh, it scratched it for you.
See.
You see what they are?
They're just constantly making sound as well.
Thank you. I don't know if I can get my microphone a little bit closer to them without scaring them off. They were getting their heads right onto the water. I hope you could hear them then. This has definitely made my day.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Again, like at this time of year, if you have a spare, even just half an hour, 20 minutes, go out to the canal and just.
If you work near the canal, just on your lunch break, because even if you work in the city centre or you live near the city centre, you get all the birds and things really quite close to. As soon as you join and walk along, there's always swans and things and ducks knocking about. I think because people feed them.
In the centre of town, I think there is actually a pair of swans that have got some goslings just near the. Near the Dalek on the canal there, just after Asda House, there is a pair of swans that have got goslings, and they sit right on the bank, and they're not really that fazed by people.
So I could just spend all day watching these little guys.
If you look, you see, they're just sort of chomping at the water to get all of those little tiny creatures we were showing you earlier.
And eating the hydra and things is much better for them. So if they do get fed loads of the white bread, then they do sort of stop trying to get all of this much better nutritionally food.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like humans, isn't it? If you eat McDonald's every single day rather than eating proper food.
Oh, they have some little poos.
Right. Well, I mean, we're at 35 minutes.
And we were going to get up to Bramley's Pool, so that's what we were saying about the stone. So if you keep walking this way, you kind of get to one of our favourite Hollybush walks. If you ever joined a Hollybush walking group, is from Hollybush up through Bramley Falls Wood, and that's quite an old quarry. So I cut Alex off earlier because I thought we were going to make it up there to talk about it a bit more. But that's the quarry, old quarries where the stone for Kirkstall Abbey came from, the stone for the Corn Exchange and the Town Hall. So that sort of grit stone. But also it was Westminster Bridge and Euston Arch at Euston Station. Also the stone for them came from Bramley Falls Quarry, which is now Bramley Falls Wood, which is again this lovely established woodland. That's amazing. If you go through it, it has these, you can see the old quarries, it has these amazing sort of grand features in it. It's a really lovely walk, so it's worth an explore. But also another example of the sort of, quite often woodlands and things will be along canals because they are nice walks, and adding these sort of, preserving these little woodland walks and things fits quite nicely with it, so you can get some lovely days out.
And as well, if you're thinking, oh, I don't really want to go along the canal, it's a bit muddy, but it's just been from, I think, Woodlesford to all the way up here now, the path is pretty good, hard standing aggregate or poly resin.
And actually, we did find that out last September, if you go from Leeds Liverpool, from Hollybush to Skelton Grange, our sister site in South Leeds, the quickest way is to go along the canal.
Yeah.
I say quickest. Alex was in a car, I was on a bike, we raced, I won.
Yeah.
I did cycle as quickly as I possibly could. If you were going at a slightly more leisurely pace, it might take slightly longer.
I mean, you can go quite, just walking very slowly or riding your bike very leisurely, and the path is so well maintained that you can you don't have to concentrate on looking at the path for potholes. You can be looking around and seeing the
Because you might
canal.
think that, but it always, as well as being a leisure activity for commuting, it really does make sense.
Yeah, if I ride my bike from Woodlesford, I come along the canal rather than the road.
As long as you're courteous to the others, to the people walking and the people fishing, and everyone's
put a bell on your bike.
Yeah, but even then, it is a much nicer way to get to work than sort of going along a busy road, especially if you're a nervous cyclist on the roads. I mean, I cycle in on the work now, but I would quite often take the longer route home to go along the canal and loop around rather than go on the road, just because it's just such a nice way to end your day. Not in the mornings, because I'm not usually running on time to take the longer route. But in the afternoons, take that longer route home, and you just get to spend that little bit where you get to end your working day and just sort of keep an eye out for ducks and things, and just sort of turn your mind to a more positive evening. Oh, I've got a water skater there. So I reckon. Oh. Yeah. Someone's just stopped to admire our ducklings. The lady duck quacked as we went past, just to be like, come pay attention to my kids. Oh, what's that? You can hear. You quite often will see herons as well.
Yes, I see quite a few along this stretch.
And you do see a lot of, it's fairly common to see a kingfisher, and used to see one every day cycling to Skelton Grange. So I think, should we wrap up now?
Yeah.
Because I think we've taken you on a nice explore.
Yeah, if you get some time it's also wheelchair accessible now as well, I should say. Like, it's,
It can be a bit tricky getting onto some of the bridges,
but there's usually ways around them if
you come on from the Horsforth end, or if you can't actually access the canal from the Hollybush Gardens at the moment, but when our cafes reopen, it will be a route through, and then it will be wheelchair accessible to get through that way.
Yeah, thank you.
And there's lots of resources available online about like what sort of species and things you get, but we're sort of more doing an introduction to what you can see.
Yeah, I mean,
why it's worth doing.
We're trying to pique your interest. If you liked some of the things we've seen today, get out there and maybe if you don't have time during the week, at the weekend, just go on a nice walk, take a sandwich or something with you, and just go along the canal and take it all in.
And Freya and Alex, sponsored by the canal.
Yeah, I mean, take some pictures. We'd love to see if anyone watching's got, or if you've got any nice pictures that you've taken previously of things around the car. If anyone's got a picture of a kingfisher that they've managed to snap.
And we will be posting over the next day or so. A couple of years ago, we had a photo competition for aquatic adventures, and we did get some amazing entries of people that volunteer and know Hollybush had submitted of some that we'll be sharing on social media over the next day or so. So keep an eye out for them. And please do send us your photos. Tell us your stories in the comments about your experience on the canal. We want to hear nice stories.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you very much for joining us. I
Yeah.
hope you've enjoyed having a look at the fishes.
I always love doing the ones that we do like this, where they're a bit more mindful and peaceful, because it's a wonderful start to the day.
Yeah, we just go into the rest of our working day just like,
Yeah.
So thank you very much for joining us,
Mm-hmm.
and we will see you again soon.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.